Live NFL trivia every Wednesday night on Twitch at 9 p.m. Eastern. Come show off your football knowledge for a chance to win cash prizes. Check the link in the description to find out more. And now, on with our feature presentation. While Thanksgiving can be a fun holiday for a lot of people, it can also be a holiday that, if you're a certain football player, can elicit some bad memories and bring flashbacks to your mind that you did not want to have. Every year, you're reminded of some absolutely infamous moments that have taken place in NFL history on this holiday. Leon Lett will always associate Thanksgiving with his infamous blunder at the end of the Cowboys' 1993 game against the Dolphins. Mark Sanchez will always associate Thanksgiving with the butt fumble. Neither of those mistakes are going away anytime soon, and when you think of Thanksgiving, odds are you might think of those plays immediately. As bad as that play by Lett was, it didn't end his career, as he still played in the NFL until 2001, and even made a couple of Pro Bowls. But as bad as that play by Sanchez was, it didn't end his career, as he still played in the NFL until 2018. 6 years after the butt fumble. You want to see a player make a blunder so bad on Thanksgiving that it may have single-handedly ended his career? This is New York Giants wide receiver Stephen Baker, and in 1992, he had a drop that was so bad and so painful that it ended his career on the spot. His long, relatively decent career in the NFL died on the spot on Turkey Day, and this is the story behind the worst drop in Thanksgiving history. Before I talk about the drop in question, we need some context to understand who Stephen Baker is, how he was playing, and why one brutal drop in front of a national television audience would essentially end his career. In 1987, fresh off of the heels of winning Super Bowl 21, the New York Giants decided to spend a third-round pick on the Fresno State wide receiver, as they took Baker with pick number 83 in the NFL Draft. The Giants wanted some help at the receiver position, as even though they won the Super Bowl, there was still plenty of room to improve in that department. Only one receiver on the team had more than 500 yards. And the team was in the bottom half of the league in passing offense. Plus, aside from being one of the top receivers in the Pacific Coast Athletic Association, Baker offered immense value on special teams, having returned 3 punts for a touchdown in his collegiate career. The pick made a ton of sense, and Baker was even able to work his way into the starting lineup for 5 games as a rookie, which was the second most starts by any receiver on the team that year. And in the 5 years that followed, Baker was a key part of the New York Giants offense. There was a reason that people dubbed him the touchdown maker, and that was because he had a knack at times for finding the end zone. In 1988, he scored 7 touchdowns for the Giants, which was the most of any receiver on the team by a fairly healthy margin, and he finished inside the top 10 in the NFL in that season in that category. He was also very good at scoring touchdowns when the team needed them the most. Just to give some examples, in 1987, the Giants led the Eagles 13-6 in the fourth quarter. Good time for a touchdown to put the game out of reach, right? Well, Baker delivered. In 1990, the Giants were trailing the Phoenix Cardinals 19-10 late in the fourth quarter, and needed a quick score. Well, Baker delivered with a 38-yard touchdown in an iconic comeback. In 1991, the Giants were tied with the Buccaneers in the fourth quarter. Baker once again delivered the goods, and scored from 30 yards out. If you needed a big play at a big moment, Stephen Baker was your man. Over those first 5 seasons, he was a key rotational piece in that offense, and a man who found the end zone 19 times, even finishing 6th in yards per reception during the 1991 season. He even caught a touchdown pass at Super Bowl 25, and helped the Giants win their second Super Bowl in franchise history because of that second quarter catch. It seemed like Baker's career was off to a pretty solid start as he was about to enter his 6th season in the league, and then it all seemed to fall apart. In 1992, the Giants were rolling with Mark Ingram and Stephen Baker as their starting 2 receivers. Ingram took a giant step backwards during that season, with his yardage being cut in half, his reception total being cut in half, and his touchdown total being cut by 2/3. However, even though Ingram struggled that season, it was nothing compared to the struggles that Baker was going through. Because the 1992 season wasn't just bad for Baker, it was historically bad. If a pass was thrown in his general direction, you could just assume that it was going to be an incomplete pass, and you could just assume that the ball was going to be hitting the ground in some way, shape, or form. During the 1992 season, Baker caught a mere 28.8% of the passes thrown his way. I want to put into perspective just how atrocious that catch percentage is. In 1992, there were 160 players to catch at least 10 passes. At the top, you had Los Angeles Rams running back Cleveland Gary, who caught an astonishing 94.5% of the passes thrown his way, although granted, a lot of them were checkdowns and dump-offs. Guys like Jerry Rice and Sterling Sharp were hovering around that 66% mark, so 2 out of every 3. As Meatloaf said, that ain't bad. The league average was a hair below 60%. The 25th percentile was a hair above 50%. At 159th, you had Seattle Seahawks wide receiver Lewis Clark, who caught only 35.1% of passes thrown his way. That is atrocious, and let's just say there's a reason he never played again after that 1992 season. Stephen Baker caught 28.8% of the passes thrown his way. He was roughly 7 percentage points worse than the next closest receiver in football. Not only was he dead last in the NFL that season, but in the last 30 years, since that stat really started to get tracked, no receiver has had as worse of a catch rate as Baker did in 1992. Against the Eagles, he caught 4 out of 13 passes thrown his way. Against Washington, he caught none of the 3 passes in his direction. Against the Rams, he caught 1 out of 6. He was playing poorly, yet he was still in the starting lineup. Now, he had a chance to showcase his skills on Thanksgiving in front of a national television audience, and salvage what had been a disastrous season thus far. As you can probably guess, he was not able to do that. Not even close. November 26, 1992. It's week 13 of the NFL season, and we've got an NFC East rivalry matchup on our hands between the Dallas Cowboys and the New York Giants. This Thanksgiving game is a big deal for the Giants, who sit at 5-6. Even though their season has not gone according to plan, they have a shot at the postseason. They're only 1 game behind Washington for the final wildcard spot in the conference, so if they win, their season is still very much alive. A loss, however, puts them in a pretty tough spot, where their playoff hopes would be hanging by a thread. If they were going to pull off the Thanksgiving upset and shock the country, they were going to need starting wide receiver Stephen Baker to have a big game. Everyone was going to have to step up, but perhaps no one more so than Baker, who had a reputation by this point as the worst receiver in football. And fortunately for the Giants, they're able to get off to a pretty good start. They get the ball right away, and even though it looks like they're about to go 3 and out, after the Cowboys jump offside on the punt on 4th down, the Giants are able to retain possession. 2 plays later, the Giants decide to open up their bag of tricks, going with the flea flicker. After Rodney Hampton gets the handoff, he pitches it back to Ken Graham, who hits a wide-open Chris Calloway for a 44-yard gain. Not to spoil anything, but this was the only pass play that went longer than 9 yards all day for the Giants. Still, this was a great, well-executed play, and it got the Giants into the red zone for the first time today. Eventually, they're facing a 3rd and 9. The Giants have to take advantage of this opportunity in the red zone early on, and with the Cowboys feeling a bit deflated after they couldn't get off the field on 4th down, and after a flea flicker went for a huge gain. On the field trying to run a post route is Stephen Baker. He's the primary option on this play, and aside from wanting to redeem himself for an awful season, he wants to redeem himself for an awful game he had in the first meeting between the Giants and the Cowboys, where he had 10 passes thrown his way, and in a losing effort, caught 1 of them. Ken Graham was going his way here. And what happened next might be the worst drop in the history of Thanksgiving. Roll the tape.
You don't know what to expect when you get a center who's a lawyer. Graham had it through Baker's hand. He had it there, too. Well, that was a perfect throw, and that was against double coverage. Baker ran right through double coverage, and Kent Graham throws a perfect pass to him. Again, we tell you, this guy has a strong arm. I mean, he put something on there. He zipped that thing right through 2 defenders, right into Stephen Baker's hand. He has to catch that pass. That's a touchdown.
To say that this play was disastrous would be an understatement. Instead of the Giants jumping out to a 7-0 lead after the first possession, they finished the drive without a touchdown. Heck, they couldn't even get a field goal out of it, as the usually reliable Matt Barr, who had made 11 straight kicks before this, missed a chip shot 34-yard field goal, meaning that the Giants walked away empty-handed. Any momentum that the Giants had to start the game off was completely lost, and by that point, the blowout was on, as the Cowboys dominated, winning at 30-3 thanks in part to an unbelievable performance by Emmitt Smith, who scored 2 touchdowns and had over 160 yards from scrimmage. It was a performance so good that Giants defensive end Leonard Marshall said afterwards that he thought that Smith could be the greatest running back of all time, even better than Walter Payton. Pretty bold claim for a guy that wasn't even done with his 3rd year yet, but considering the records that he holds today, it actually turned out to be pretty on the money. However, a lot of the talk after the game on the Giants side was about that awful drop from Stephen Baker, and how that drop deflated the energy. Baker was frustrated at himself, and understandably so, considering how golden of an opportunity it was, and considering how poorly he had been playing all season. He said, "No excuses. I dropped it. I didn't get my hands in the right position. It could have changed the game." Baker continued and praised his quarterback for the throw, especially beating double coverage, saying Kent threw an excellent pass to me. A perfect pass, in fact, but I messed up. I don't know what happened, but I should have had the ball and the touchdown. Even though Graham said afterwards that those things happen, you could just sense the frustration from everyone involved, especially after a bad loss like this that all but ended New York's chances of making it to the postseason. Baker finished that game with no receptions. He was targeted 2 more times, with none of them being as memorable or as important as that target to start off the game, and he left the game without catching a single football. This meant that in the 2 games he played against Dallas, he caught 1 out of 13 passes thrown his way. which comes out to less than 8% if you're doing the math at home. To put that number into some perspective, his odds of catching a pass thrown his way against the Cowboys secondary were roughly equivalent to the odds of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers winning a game from 1976 to 77. They were that bad. And as it turned out, that drop pretty much sealed his fate in the NFL, because he never caught another pass ever again. Baker had been disappointed with his play for most of the 1992 season. 2 months before the game, he talked about how he wasn't living up to his own expectations, and how he was struggling to create any separation. And obviously, his struggles were highlighted on Thanksgiving in front of the entire country, whether he was struggling to create separation or struggling to just catch the football. Anytime a starting receiver finishes a game with a goose egg in the receptions column, you know it was rough. Unfortunately for him, this was becoming an all too common theme, and with head coach Ray Handley knowing that the offense needed to improve, and knowing that his job was on the line, he decided after that Cowboys game to make some changes. Baker was pulled from the starting lineup in exchange for Callaway, and rarely saw the field from that point on. When he did see the field, he did nothing. He saw 2 passes thrown his way during the entire month of December over the final 4 games of the season, and caught none of them. Baker did not catch a single pass after that Thanksgiving game, and was cut by the Giants during the 1993 preseason, thanks to a disastrous camp where he didn't participate in off-season conditioning, showed up to camp out of shape, led the team in drop passes, and was moments away from throwing up after a simple sprinting drill. Other than that, he had a phenomenal camp. In other words, the end to his career in the NFL was nothing short of a disaster. Stephen Baker has a weird legacy in the eyes of Giants fans who were around at the time. Some Giants fans remember him fondly as the touchdown maker, as the man who could make a big play happen when the team needed it most, and as the man who caught a touchdown pass in Super Bowl 25 and played a key part in giving New York the Vince Lombardi Trophy when things were looking bleak. But sometimes, the last impression you give is the one that people remember you for. And for many people, their lasting legacy as Stephen Baker is his critical drop on Thanksgiving, which, considering the circumstances not just for the rest of his game and the season, but for his career, might be the worst drop in the history of the NFL on Thanksgiving. Get your official Jaguar Gamer 9 merchandise by going to jg9shop.com, and be sure to like this video, ring the notification bell, subscribe down below if you haven't already, as it helps the channel out a lot, and be sure to check out Twitch every Wednesday night at 9 p.m. Eastern for your chance to play NFL Trivia and win cash prizes. Link in the description below. If you want to see videos like this condensed down to 60 seconds, then follow me on TikTok at JaguarGator9, and subscribe to 60-Second NFL History on YouTube. To see highlight videos of players throughout the history of the NFL, subscribe to JG9 Highlights. Also, special thanks to all of our Patreon supporters for helping out the channel. Your support is greatly appreciated. See how you can become a patron and request future video topics in the description below.